Right, good afternoon and apologies for the slight delay at the start of this meeting. We may or may not be on YouTube, I can't tell you. It thinks we are, I don't know. Anyway, apologies for absence and appointment of substitute members, please.
Through you, Chair. We have apologies for absence from Councillors Addison, Councillors Clark and Councillor Alan Chandler, and apologies have been received from Councillors Parker and Gonzalez de Savage, with Councillors Irving Swift and Kilbride substituting respectively.
Okay, and thank you for the substitutes coming along today, much appreciated. So, does anybody have a declaration of interest in any matters posted on this agenda? Whoever that was, I'll come to it in a minute. Press F1, please. So that doesn't make a noise. Thank you. Minutes. The minutes of the committee meeting held on the 10th of September are still being considered and will be available to follow, which won't be at this meeting. Chair's announcements. Under the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulation 2014, members of the public or those party to the meeting are permitted to film, broadcast or report on the meeting, subject to the efficient running of the meeting not being affected. Only those people who have registered in line with the committee's speaking procedure can address the committee. Those speaking are not permitted to ask questions of either members or officers. Members of the public are requested not to call out during the committee's discussion on any item. All speakers will have 5 minutes in which to make their statement. Participants addressing the planning committee will be advised when they have 60 seconds of their allotted time remaining and will be expected to cease talking immediately on being advised that their time is up. Speakers may be asked to remain seated after they've addressed the committee to answer questions from the planning committee members. There are no planned fire drills, so if the alarm does sound, evacuation instruction will be given by Democratic officer on my right, and the assembly point is at the bottom of the steps of the mount, which is the green hump over there. Could electronic devices please be switched off or onto silent mode? For those members using laptops, could I ask you to press F1 on their machines and a blue light will come on, indicate that their sound is muted. This meeting will, or possibly, be broadcast on the council's corporate YouTube channel. Therefore, when speaking, please use your microphones and have them close to your mouth, please. That's that bit. Right, assuming we are on YouTube, I will introduce the top table for the benefit of those who are not here to see who's here. On my far right is Diana Davis from Democratic Services. On my right, Catherine Hall from Legal. Myself, Phil Bignell, Chairman. On my left, Simon Ellis, Head of Planning. Nikki Scaife, Head of Major Developments. Rebecca Grant, Planning Officer, and Chris Burton, when he turns up at the end, also Planning Officer. So without further ado, and I don't think I've missed anything, we'll move to item 5. I call upon Rebecca on my left to present land at Malabar Farm, Staverton Road, Daventry. Can you let the officer in, please? On Zoom, I mean, not physically. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This is a reserve matter application for appearance, landscaping, layout and scale for the construction of 128 dwellings and associated infrastructure at a Malabar site. So you can see the location plan here. It's an application that relates to Daventry Southwest Sustainable Urban Extension, which was approved planning permission November 2021 following the completion of a Section 106 agreement. The scheme provides up to 1,100 dwellings, a local centre, primary school, open space and landscaping. It falls within land allocated by policy HO1 of the Daventry Local Plan Part 2. The site lies on the edge of Daventry. The old Staverton Road forms the northern boundary of the site and links the remainder of the allocation to the north with the Bellway site, which is currently being built out. Staverton lies to the west and Daventry to the east. This is the approved indicative master plan and shows overall how the site will be developed. Access to the site is via a roundabout on the A425 for earlier phases of the development, and a roundabout is also provided off the A45 for later phases. This roundabout has been constructed but is not yet in use. We'll just go through some photos. These are the photos of the roundabout, which has been installed on the A425 and is the main entrance into the development. This is taken across the bridge on the A45 and it looks out across the wider site. There's Stepnell Spinney in the background on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side is you can just see the Bellway development. These are on the left-hand side. It's a view along the former Old Staverton Road, which will be a green link between the Bellway to the north and the Malabar Park to the south. And then the photo on the right is looking from the application site towards the green link. So a few further photos to show looking from the application site to the green link and the Bellway site. And this is the application site with Stepnell Spinney in the background. And then this is just some of the dwellings that are under construction by Crest. And this is part of the opposite side of the application site that's under consideration today. Condition 8 of the outline approval required the submission and approval of a design code prior to any development taking place. And this was approved in August 2022. The design code approved a regulating plan, which is shown here, and sets out character areas and key features of the development. So there are 4 character areas: the town, core, district, and edge. You've got the town, which is closest to the local centre and the school, primary school sites, and the roundabout on the A45. And this is where the higher densities are located. The core, which is the light blue, which runs east-west and north-south down the site, provides connectivity along the spine roads into the southern areas of the residential areas. And then the district, which forms the core of the residential areas. And finally, the edge, which responds to the rural nature of the farmland. There's lower buildings, public open space to protect views over Stepnell Spinney and the surrounding green space. So phase 1C is in the middle centre, just around here, next to the school. So you can't see, but where the star is, it's the area that forms along there. I'll go on to the plan next. So it does include pedestrian links to the public open space to the south, where there's equipped area play, an orchard with the picnic areas, play on the way, green links, and footpath and cycle connections. So this is the proposed site layout. It's for a development of 128 dwellings, and all of these will be affordable. 29 will comply with the obligations set out in the 106. The remaining 99 will be brought forward as additional provision of affordable units and will not count towards the affordable housing requirements that are set out with the 106 in respect to delivery of the wider site. WNC's Housing Strategy Officer has no objections to the proposal. Whilst it's acknowledged that there's a high number of affordable in one phase of the development, the tenure mix is flexible and there'll be a selection of affordable home ownership products available for first-time buyers. Platform will be the affordable housing provider. It's considered that the provision of affordable will help to meet Daventry's need and will also continue to progress the development within the SUE within a struggling market. No consultees have objected to the proposal. Whilst I note that there is an objection from the LLFA, these are in relation to details which are controlled via conditions attached to the outline planning approval and will be dealt with separately. I'll just go through a couple of the street scenes. This is the top one is the elevation fronting the green link. The bottom one is the elevation fronting the school site. And then these are elevations along the spine road. And then finally along the green edge. And then just a few to show the different character areas. So you've got the edge character area to the south, the core, which runs along the main spine road, and the town, which is closest to the local centre. And there's some visuals just at the end. The application is considered to be acceptable and therefore recommended for approval with delegated authority to the Assistant Director for Planning and Development to approve any amendments to the conditions set out in the report as necessary. I would draw members' attention to late items. There's an update to condition 1, which is the drawing numbers. There's also a few other updates there which will need to be added. And also Highways have confirmed that they have no objection to the updated drawings, which they had previously raised a couple of minor points, but they have been addressed with the submission of amended plans. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. Do any members have any questions of the officer? Oh, it was obviously a very good, comprehensive presentation. Thank you, Rebecca. So we'll move on to speakers. I have Francis Keenan, the applicant from Spitfire Homes. If you'd like to come to the front, please. Make yourself comfortable. And yeah, if you pull it towards you and press the button in the middle, and when you start, I'll allow you 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to make this brief presentation today. My name is Francis Keenan, I'm the Planning Manager at Spitfire Homes. This Phase 1C Reserve Matters application comprises of 128 affordable dwellings, of which 29 dwellings will be Section 106 compliant. The remaining 99 will be additional affordable units delivered and managed by Platform Housing Group. Phase 1C continues on from Phase 1A of 220 dwellings approved in March 2023, and Phase 1B for 68 dwellings approved in October 2023. Spitfire Homes and Crest Nicholson are invested in the delivery of the scheme, actively building out dwellings on Phase 1A and Phase 1B, with our first residents moving in the summer. This reserve matters follows the established parameters regarding land use, movement, building height and green infrastructure, which was established through the 2021 outline consent, which followed the allocation through the Part 2 local plan. The layout and detailed design elements accord with the design code, which was approved in July 2022 through Strategic Planning Committee. The design code separates Phase 1C into all 4 character areas: town, core, district and edge, each with their own distinctive material palette and design reflecting their proximity with either Daventry Town Centre or the rural villages. During the course of the application process, design comments were received from the case officer and amendments were made, including additional chimneys added to plots located within the edge character area, alterations to boundary treatments on prominent plots, a change in window colour, a reduction in density in the edge character area, and a repositioning of plots opposite the primary school site. The scheme has been designed to accommodate access to the Green Link, otherwise known as the Old Staverton Road, allowing linkage to Bellway scheme and walking and cycling infrastructure connecting to town. West Northants Highways and the designing out crime officer raised no objection to the proposal and support the internal road network and wider vehicular, pedestrian and cycle connectivity. West Northants housing officers raised no objections to the proposed scheme, agreeing the proposed mix and tenure will create a balanced and sustainable community for all forms of housing need. Platform Housing Group have a strong record of delivering all affordable schemes across the Midlands, with a dedicated community engagement team who help support residents and deliver a range of activities and initiatives to build communities. They are proud to offer an opportunity for all to live on this site, for those in the most extreme cases of housing need, and to those taking the first steps on the housing ladder, or even those purchasing their dream home. In accordance with policy HOA to the local plan, all of the dwellings are built to national space standards, provide the legally required accessible, adaptable and wheelchair user accommodation, will be highly energy efficient homes with air source heat pumps providing the sustainable low carbon source of heating and EV charging points. Approval of this third phase of the Reserve Matters application will allow the site to progress, ensuring much needed delivery of affordable dwellings and key infrastructure, all set within a high quality environment in accordance with the approved Daventry South West Design Code. As such, we request the members of the Planning Committee vote in favour of the scheme, agreeing with the case officer's recommendation of approval. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Francis. If you'd like to remain seated. Cecile Irvine-Smith, you have a question.
Just if I understand correctly, it's because it was a Daventry application. The only building with a flat roof is at the entry of the development.
In the town character
Yeah,
area nearest
yes.
the local centre, yes, correct.
Yes, so
Yeah.
that is the only
Yes.
one. And do you plan to have some solar panel on those little flat roof?
Not in, there isn't solar panels on this portion of the development, no.
Thank you.
Yes, councillor Pritchard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Was any consideration given with regards to the affordable homes for rented or shared ownership?
So Platform Housing Group do have the intention of delivering their additionality units as shared ownership or rent to buy. In the way that their funding mechanism works with Homes England, that can't be set at this stage, and it just depends on market conditions, but it is their intention to deliver those two versions of affordable housing.
Right. And also something that we would talk about the green link.
Mhm.
What is the definition of a green link?
I think green link's just a term it's given. The old Staverton Road will be turned into a walking and cycling pedestrian route, so it'll be downgraded from its previous vehicle connections. So it'll just provide, hopefully sustainable transport or walking and cycling throughout the development.
No cars.
Yeah, old Staverton Road won't be vehicular, no.
Thank you.
Yes, councillor Humphreys, please.
Thank you very much. The 29 affordable units that will comply with the obligations of the Section 106 agreement, was that always the figure that was both parties had in mind?
So through the Section 106, we've had to agree affordable housing scheme, which sets out each phase's delivery of affordable housing. And for this phase, this is the set amount that we're delivering.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much indeed, Francis.
Thank you.
Rebecca, is there anything you want to come back on those questions?
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the green link, it's a design feature that was approved at the outline stage. So it was a pedestrian route to enable to cross over from the A45 across the bridge, and then you've got access along the green route to either continue over to Staverton or through the development itself.
And also my second question with regards to affordable, shall we say, rent or shared ownership, when will the definition and actually quantity be decided?
Thank you, Chair. So we can control what's within the 106, the 29 units that that comply with the Section 106. So that's set out in the site-wide affordable housing plan. The additional units, they are in addition. So our affordable housing officer confirmed that, that they are providing an affordable product. We're not concerned in terms of what the actual final tenure would be.
And also, will the validation or variation process come into force?
Sorry, I don't quite understand that.
When we talk about profitability from a developer's perspective, we have a validation or variation process that goes through. Will this actually be subject to that?
In terms of the additional units, then they're not part of the Section 106. They're just providing additional affordable housing for the Daventry's population.
Okay, thank you.
Freebies. Right. We're now in a debate stage. Does anybody want to begin this debate? Yes, councillor Cecile Irvine-Smith.
As I remember that site when we were still at Daventry and we did the outline, I don't see anything unduly, and I would like to go with officer advice. Thank you.
Councillor Manners.
I would agree with that. I think the fact that putting on the EV and the solar panels is to be applauded. And it makes me question why other developers aren't doing that. And Rebecca, you might be able to answer this. Why have they increased the number? I should have asked Francis probably, the number of affordable homes in this development. But overall, I like it.
So Platform Housing Association is taking on the whole of this phase for 1C. So it's in a struggling market, it is seen as being able to enable the development to continue. And there was a need for more affordable within Daventry, so they'll be providing for that need.
Next question or debate or thoughts or comments? Councillor Pritchard again.
Yes, will the affordable homes count towards the overall SUE type scenario?
No, not the additional units. So they are 99 additional affordable housing units. The rest of the development will comply with the Section 106,
Smashing, thank you.
which is policy compliant.
Following on from Councillor Irvine Smith's mention of flat roofs. That's an unusual building characteristic nowadays. I wondered why, and if there is there, why don't you stick some panels on it? So it's a double question, really.
I remember having a lot of debate about that flat roof because of the entrance at the time. If my memory serves me right.
As a character point, it doesn't look nice, I don't think.
I can answer the first part of the question in terms of the flat roofs and the design. So this part links onto phase 1B. And there are apartments within that phase that have been approved and they have got flat roofs. So it does, and it's within the main spine road. It then links to the town, the local centre, where it's got closer connectivity to Daventry, and that's where the higher densities are. And that's an approved design that we have allowed.
And the second part?
In terms of solar panels.
Flat roof, it always seems a great place to put solar panels, no?
I don't know what's been approved on phase. I mean, we can check to see what has been approved on phase 1B. I don't think that they were approved on there.
No, I'm only pursuing it because they've been very generous in the way they've said they're going to put solar panels on the buildings there, but omitted this one. I'm trying to work the.
If I just draw members' attention to the
Please.
late items, there's an update on the PV panels, and Platform Housing have agreed to install air source heat pumps to all proposed homes in lieu of the gas boilers and the roof mounted panels. So that they won't be providing panels on the houses. No,
So the updates is what each house or property is going to get as a air source heat pump, as opposed to a solar panel, which I think is quite a generous offer anyway. Because
yeah, so that ensures that, just reading out the late items, assures that the annual carbon emissions will be greatly reduced. And that's obviously also combined with the external building fabrics, which exceeds the minimum requirements by current building regulations. So whilst they're not providing them, they are providing air source heat pumps, which is
good, makes sense. Thank
a
you.
positive.
No, good. Any more debate? Yes, Councillor Russell, please.
Thank you. Bus stops, will there be bus stops through the main estate?
Yes, there will. There is let me just have a look at the location plan. I believe that there is a bus stop on the right-hand side. There's an area of open space and there's a bus stop there. So it's on the main spine road through the development. Well, that's in this phase of development, there is a bus stop. So there will be others on other phases.
Any more for any more? Do we have a proposer maybe? Councillor Pritchard, sorry, I saw him first, Councillor Mans. Councillor Pritchard.
have been outlined, and also, I think, as I said before, when the microphone wasn't on, I propose that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Okay, and councillor Manners seconds that, I guess. Thank you. So we have a proposer and a seconder to accept this with the conditions that have been outlined by the case officer. Councillor Owen-Smith, you look puzzled.
I did propose. I already proposed.
Oh, I thought you said it was a good.
No,
I didn't know it was an actual
I did.
proposal.
No, it was a proposal.
Sorry, councillor Pritchard, you've lost your proposal.
I've lost that. I've lost that.
So it's been proposed by councillor Fine-Smith, seconded by councillor Manners. For those that are in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Let's move on to item 6, which again was from Rebecca, which is land at Duston Road, Upper Halston, Northampton, for 80 units.
Thank you, Chair. This is another reserve matter application for appearance, landscaping, layout and scale for the erection of 80 dwellings and associated infrastructure. So the application relates to Northampton West SUE and forms part of allocation N4 of the Joint Core Strategy. The outline application fell under the former Daventry and South Northamptonshire councils. Both authorities approved outline planning permission for up to 1,750 dwellings and associated infrastructure in December 2020. To the east is the New Sandy Lane, beyond which is Duston, and to the north is Port Road, and to the south is Roman Road, which is beyond the application site. So this is the approved indicative master plan to illustrate how the full allocation could be developed. The first phase is access of the new roundabout on New Sandy Lane, which has been installed. The spine road then heads north and links the approved but not installed roundabout on Port Road. I've just got a couple of photographs to show this is New Sandy Lane and the roundabout that has been installed, and then development has just started on the first phase. It's the roundabout in the opposite direction. So a design code has also been approved to cover all phases, and that was approved by a strategic committee in October 2021. An addendum was approved October 2022 to allow the expansion of the central character area, which allows a more contemporary style along the spine road. Reserve matters approval has already been approved for phase 1A to 1E, and that's just shown on the slide there. This proposal is a resubmission for part of phase 1C for 80 private rented sector dwellings. The dwellings approved under the previous reserve matter approval were market dwellings. However, again, due to economic market at the moment, the dwellings will be constructed by Bloor Homes but sold to a private rented sector landlord. For background, the section 106 for the outline permissions allow for the first 430 dwellings to be provided without delivering any affordable units. This was based on a viability appraisal which took into account the significant infrastructure which was being delivered in the early phases of development. WNC's strategic housing officer has not raised any concerns with the proposal and advises that it will address a need within Northampton for the private rented sector properties and therefore has no objections. So this is the phase 1C, the application that has been submitted. The layout, so as I say, this has already been approved. There's a slight amendment to the layout, but nothing significant, and all the landscaping has already been approved under the previous reserve matter application. Just a couple of street scenes. This is the Fleetlands street scene, which is more traditional in character. And then this is along the main spine road, which is slightly more contemporary. Just a couple of house types along the Fleetlands. Oh, sorry. Go back to the layout. So there are no objections. Given that there are no objections, the proposal is considered that planning permission be granted subject to the conditions set out in the report, with delegated powers to the Assistant Director for Planning and Development to approve any amendments to those conditions as deemed necessary. I would draw members' attention to late items. And it's just about the description of developments. And the applicant has confirmed that the description of development has been amended to move the reference to private sector dwellings, as the local planning authority has no means to control the ownership of these properties. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rebecca. Questions for the case officer, please? No? Going well. Right, so we'll now move on to speaker time. So I'd invite John Wilbraham to come forward with James Caffrey, if he wants to come forward at the same time. You sure? Right, if you make yourself comfortable and hold the microphone up when you're ready. Press the button and you have up to 5 minutes to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. We're primarily here today to answer any questions that members may have, as the officer has covered the matters thoroughly within their report and their presentation. Just to re-emphasise that this is a small parcel within a larger SUV development, comprising 18.6% of the overall development, with a further 252 dwellings to come forward for the amended remaining phases in phase one through RMs imminently. It's essentially just a rejig of the layout to accommodate the sale to the private rental sector landlord. Given the difficult market we found ourselves in, this allows us to continue delivering needed dwellings within the West Northants area. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. If you want to remain seated. If anybody got any questions of Mr. Wilbraham? Yep, Councillor Pritchard, please.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the attenuation pond, how deep will that be?
Let's not make it easy for him.
No.
It's one of these things, obviously, I
Speaking of
appreciate, but
fish.
when you look at the situation with regards to the depth of it and also with children and so on and so forth.
It's deep enough to accommodate the required drainage facilities. I don't know the precise figure off the top of my head. There may well be a post and rail fence, need rail around it. I'd have to double check the plans on that one.
Yeah.
It is previously approved though.
Okay, thank you.
Well, so I believe it's statutory, you have a fence around, so as I understand it. Mr. Caffrey doesn't know the answer, does he? Just checking. Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Any more questions, please? Yes, Councillor Humphries, thank you.
Just wanted to ask, there was a reference to gas boilers somewhere in the report. I was just trying to find them, but you're not offering air source heat pumps as a means of heating, which would obviously be far more desirable environmentally.
We're not, no, we're implementing essentially what's been previously approved. This is just to rearrange the house types from elsewhere within the phase, but they are going to be sort of the highest efficiency gas boilers.
But did you contemplate something like air source heat pumps?
I don't believe we did, no. It was just like I say, this is just moving house types around from elsewhere within the approved RMs.
Any more questions? Yes, Councillor James. Please bring the microphone slightly nearer to you. Yeah. Well, there we go.
Thank you. The private rented sector, is it intended to sell it to one landlord, the entire thing?
It is, yes.
And instead of higgledy-piggledy?
No, there's just one PRS. Yeah,
that's it. It's what I need to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes. Councillor Kilbride, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the air pumps and whatnot, heat pumps. Because you're doing it, are you on a fixed price for this? Is that why we didn't consider the pumps to site for carbon and things like that? And also, what about the photovoltaic things for the roofs? Was that not investigated? Is it all because of cost?
It's because we're not looking to redesign the scheme. We're just moving houses that have been previously approved, just to make the sale to the PRS landlord.
So I get that, but obviously these schemes do have updates, And obviously the way it's going, we need to think about the planet. I think it would have been a good thing to have done. You know, as the previous application did. So I think you missed a trick there. Thank you.
Irvine Smith, please.
I'm sorry, Chair. Irving Swift. I am not Irvine Swift. I am Irving Swift.
Depends how you pronounce it.
Yes, it is. Well, my husband would say to me it's Irving Swift, but nobody seems to have it right. My children said it's Irving Swift. Would you like my French name, Piedo? It's much easier. Joking about. So you are rethinking, and everybody's asking you about the pump and so on. So is it because we want to be in net zero and all that? With a new planning, what is it? And that is maybe more for our planning officers and for you. Would that not that been review at the same time? Because if the scheme hasn't been implemented at all, it could be viewed as a new planning application if you haven't started anything on the thing. So, and because it was 2017, it's more than a rejigging. Its planning was granted on the side, but now you can say it's a new scheme. So could we ask you to review it and to have it and see if the boilers could be rechanged? I know it's a bit more work with you, but I think it might be more interesting for you in the future. Thank you. So that is depending the officer advice on that. But because it was granted in 2017, not implemented, it's not a rejigging, it's a new planning application. Thank you.
So before you answer that one, I'll take legal advice from my right-hand side.
Okay.
If you like, that may help you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, there is obviously some overlap at the moment with new regulations coming forward, whether that's building regs or building safety or biodiversity net gain. There's quite a lot going on at the moment on that front. Anything that predates those changes and has a consent provided to it would not necessarily be caught by those new regulations. So while we can encourage developers to go forward and bear those requirements in mind, we can't require it. And as a standard reminder to members, the application is as is before members today, notwithstanding what we may want to see in the future on developments.
Yes, but it is my understanding, and maybe I am wrong, I have been too long in planning, that if the scheme is not implemented, when it is reviewed, because it hasn't been started and it was 2017, so that is 5 years, the scheme as it is has to be up to date with a new regulation. It cannot be a rejigging scheme.
Catherine.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. That comes down to and I'm sure planning officers can give you the timetable on this, but it comes down to, obviously, this is part of a wider scheme that has got a resolution and a grant to consent, consent. Your reserved matters process then comes in, and there's a certain timetable for that as well. Obviously, if it was a position where new regulations applied, that would form part of the discussions between an applicant and the planning authority at that point. But we'll let the planning team perhaps might be able to help you on that one. But ordinarily, the fact that the reserved matters is here now while new regulations are in place isn't the timetable you're looking at. You're looking at the original timetable of when it was originally brought forward for application. So, for example, for the outline consent is where you tend to pitch it, but I'm sure they can clarify that if needed.
I would just say that phases A and B have been implemented south of the brook, so the scheme has been implemented.
Rebecca, do you want to back that one up?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to come in and say, whilst the outline, it was a 2017 application, it was approved 2020, and then we have approved various reserve matters for phase one in 2021, 2022. So in essence, it is just a slight rejig of the layout. We would have to have put conditions on the outline if we wanted to stipulate certain requirements, such as the panel, the solar panels. But in any case, they would be picked up through building regulations, as Catherine has said now. And that would be the latest building regulations. Thank you.
Hope that helped you, John.
Thank you, Chair. Yes.
Councillor Manners, please.
It's not actually a total planning issue, but just out of interest, what would it cost to put in a heat pump and change the design?
I'm afraid I don't have those figures in front of me.
Does your friend or colleague behind you have that price?
We're desperately trying to draw you into this.
3,000 to 5,000. I mean, this has been a continual frustration of this committee, is that we come, developments come from reserve matters having been approved prior to the latest legislation. And we really must make sure we put the conditions in that we actually then have some teeth when they do come back at this particular juncture. Because the £3,000 or £4,000 in the great scheme of things of the lifetime of the project is actually minuscule. And the only other thought I had, Richard, subsequent was actually, if you're having a heat pump, if you've got solar panels to pay for it, it then makes it vastly more efficient, which I think the previous one left behind. But again, I guess this is all down to cost.
Yes, you don't need to answer that. That was. So have a gone into the wider planning issue. Do you want to come in, Catherine? Yeah, Catherine wants to join in now.
I'm not sure about the wanting to join in. Thank you, Chair. I think the issue is there in terms of applicants as what they would be required by the right legislation to be putting forward as well. So there isn't always a requirement for them. Equally, therefore, there isn't an ability for the council to require in line with that if things aren't coming in at the right opportunity and the right moment during an application. So I think the only way we could secure future improvements would be where we are aware that something's on the horizon, and we might therefore encourage applicants to say, this is coming in 6 weeks later. You know, then we might have a genuine conversation with applicants at that point. But, you know, there's been a lot of changes over a fairly short period of time recently, and that isn't something that we can foresee in 2017 and 2020. And I think it's just about having an eye on the realistic options that are available at the time we are all in discussions with applicants and vice versa. But it's not something we can perhaps future-proof as we may wish to.
Thank you, Catherine. And finally, has anybody got any direct questions about what's in front of us for our speaker? I'm sure he's enjoyed the wider debate. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Rebecca, you've been coming back on it, so have you got anything else to say about it? No. All right, we're in the debate stage now. Who wants to start? Thank you, Cecile.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one thing. The applicant has heard us, and I think it was a missed opportunity. And that scheme, the trouble is with all this issue, it started a long time ago, and it goes on and on and on. As I said, a bigger scheme for Daventry, basically the first buyer, their children will be 25 when the last unit is going to be built. So in those time, we should be able to upgrade without, and it should be up to the developer to be, and I don't know, with the new government, maybe things will change. So we will not have to ask those questions, which are very difficult for officers to answer. So I will not propose, but I think it was a missed opportunity. Thank you.
Councillor Pritchard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, when you look at this application, it was approved some time ago, and I do appreciate my colleagues with regards to air source heat pumps. But having said that, you know, we've got to look at what actually is in front of us, and obviously its conditions rather than, in fact, full approval. So I think that I would actually propose that we accept the officer's recommendation with regards to acceptance of this application or these conditions.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. And do we have a seconder? We'll see Councillor James from Daventry, who definitely put his hand up. Thank you. So do we want any more debate? Are we happy to go to the vote or what? So we have a proposal from councillor Pritchard, seconded by councillor Jones, to accept the officer's recommendation. By show of hands, can we say whether we're happy with that? That again is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to our speakers. We move on to the final. He's outside somewhere. Here he is, Chris Burton, who will present item 7 on the agenda. Thank you. Right, thank you for that. Chris is now ready to present item 7 on the agenda, which is land southwest of Wickham Park. This is a joint effort between us and Buckinghamshire, who've already approved the major part of the solar farm. We're only looking at the access, the track and the pipeline, I believe. Over to you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. So as set out, this is a cross-boundary application for a solar farm. The description of development is the installation and operation of a solar farm, installation of underground electricity connection cable, and the use and reinstatement of an existing track from Wickham Road, together with all associated works, equipment, and necessary infrastructure. This is the red line of the application, and I'm just going to skip through so you can see the WNC order. So the grey section is Buckinghamshire, and we are the sort of white section that's not greyed out. So in terms of the red line, this is the existing trackway, and this red line is the underground cabling. So this is the overall site layout. You can see that the solar panels and associated infrastructure with the solar panels are inside the Buckinghamshire area. and they have approved their part of the planning application. Obviously, there's a full delegated report that came with it, but I think it's worth noting their conclusion, which was, even in the alternative, if the conclusion was drawn that policy conflicts determine that development does not accord with the development plan when taken as a whole, it is considered that there are material considerations that weigh strongly in favour of an approval. These material considerations are the very significant benefits of delivering renewable energy, which contributes to tackling the climate emergency crisis. Renewable energy projects, such as this solar proposal, makes a positive contribution to energy security and the commitment to the UK being powered entirely by clean electricity. These are very significant material considerations which indicate that the application should be approved. So that's from the Buckinghamshire officers' report with regards to their side of the solar farm. This is an aerial view. This is the beginning bit of the WNC land, and you can see the existing agricultural track. And it's through this agricultural field down to the southeast that the underground cabling would go. And this is a picture from Wicken Road looking onto the existing agricultural access, which they're looking to reutilise. So the main changes in terms of planning are that they're looking to resurface the agricultural track. This is just with hardcore, etc., to make it suitable for the construction vehicles to come on and off. And there will be about every 250 metres a passing place for the lorries, so that if two lorries meet each other, one can go to a passing place. This is a cross-section of the path that they're proposing. In terms of the planning balance, obviously this is an important part of allowing the solar farm to come forward. Without an access, the site can't progress. In terms of what we have to discuss, it's the landscape harm of the underground cabling, and it's the landscape harm of the resurfacing and small parts of widening of the agricultural track. Officers' view in terms of the landscape harm is that the works that have been suggested could be nearly completely achieved via permitted development if they'd gone down the agricultural route. It will still look like an agricultural track, and it may well, after construction, reduce the number of vehicle movements going up and down the site, as currently, you can imagine at harvest time, etc., there's a large number of large farm vehicles that will be using it, whereas once the site's in operation, we're looking at potentially one vehicle movement a month to come clean the panels and make sure that they're in good use. Highways have been consulted and proposed no objection to the use of the site, in part because it is an existing access and there's some acceptance of the fallback position of the agricultural use. In terms of the underground cabling, officers have found no landscape harm. There will, of course, be the digging out of the site, but again, underground cabling can be done by a statutory undertaker under permitted development. In this case, I think the applicant wants to get the ball rolling, so to speak. So the landscape harm will be very temporary, which is obviously the digging out of the cabling, and then that will be filled in and planted back over, not to be seen again. As such, your officers have recommended the application be approved. Thank you, councillors.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I'll start with a couple of questions then. You talk about the visual impact of this track. Who would actually see it? Well, I didn't see any buildings on your map, but I mean,
There's a listed building, but it is some distance away. So Heritage have viewed it and don't believe it'll affect the setting of the heritage assets. Otherwise, I suppose someone driving along the road would see the slightly sort of enhanced track.
It's not going to be viewed by a mass conurbation of houses or anything, is it really?
No, Chair, no, it's not.
Second thing, the route of the cable going out, I can understand the track stops at the road, but the cable going out on your red line stops. Why is it stopped? It's still on our land. Oh, so it's still in our county. So why is it stopped?
It might be that that's where they can connect to a larger cable, or that they'll use their National Grid's statutory powers under I think it's section 15 class B, I think from memory of the GPDO, that allows National Grid just to crack on with cabling as they see fit.
Okay, thank you. Right. Cecile.
Well, as the solar farm has been approved on the side of the border, it's look really, when you see what we have to approve, regardless if we agree with the position of Buckinghamshire. The thing is, the farm track is much more than people think because it's a long way of road. And is it necessary to have such a build-up of tarmac in, could it be because if we say that we are for an environment things, I think the road should allow the rain to infiltrate and to go around, where in that case, if we tarmac, first is change the agricultural visual impact of thing. And I think it would be detrimental for the setting. The farm, regardless of what we think about solar farm, at least here, you can see a bucolic little track. As soon as you have a road, it looks like suburbanization of an agricultural field. The cable, I understand underneath, it goes underneath and you plow. But I think I would have been happier if the track is a bit reinforced and after we put back into the position, could we have that condition, please?
But didn't the case officer say it would still look like a track, even though it is?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Yes, it's not being tarmacked. It's type 1 stone. So it's essentially as you can sort of see at the front of the site here, where the tarmac ends, and you have a slightly firmer base. It's basically firming it up so it will look like an agricultural track. It will potentially be a bit firmer than your standard agricultural track, but it will look like an agricultural track regardless. I suppose it would also eventually degrade as it's not tarmacked and it's not going to be maintained. The time it will be, I suppose, sitting before members again is in 40 years' time when they decommission and they want to redo the track to bring the solar panels off. But it will look like an agricultural track anyway, so there's no tarmac involved, and it will be permeable because it's say basically hogging, but it's a type 1 stone material. So hardcore is what they're proposing to put over the top of it.
Councillor Manners, please.
Thank you very much for that, Chris. How many acres is the solar farm and how many megahertz is it going to produce? It's not on the papers because it was obviously approved by Buckinghamshire.
It's a 49.9 megawatt.
Right.
It's I'm afraid I don't know the top of my head the acreage of it. I'd say I don't think I mentioned it in my report. Apologies for that.
I couldn't find it if it was there.
If we could, I suppose, if you think of the South Kilworth solar farm we looked at a few months ago, it's of a comparable size to South Kilworth, which again I can't remember off the top of my head, I'm afraid.
It's much more than that. 49. If it.
If you bear with me 1 second, we'll just check for you, Councillor.
It's not a material, I agree, it's not a material consideration for this planning application, but it's the context I think is important.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. Isn't it amazing where it's 49.9 megawatts? Obviously, when it gets to 50, it then goes to central government as with regards to, so everything seems to be, it's not 49. Oh, was it? Oh, well, anyway, if it was up to anyway. One of the questions as a ward member for Wycombe, I've had a couple of questions which in fact, and I appreciate that this actually solar farm has been approved in Buckinghamshire, but how close is it to the other solar farms that are adjacent, that are actually in the Wycombe parish?
I haven't assessed that as part of our decision making. I think under policy in the south, we would look at a cumulative impact of the solar farm if the solar farm was within our area of control. So when this was initially submitted, there was an exchange between Buckinghamshire and WNC, which was, we'll do our bit, you do your bit. So our analysis and our submission that we're looking at is the road and the underground cabling and the access. So the cumulative impact would have been assessed by highways in terms of the different solar farms, but the actual landscape cumulative impact hasn't been looked at or assessed by us.
with regards, is there any way that access could actually be diverted to the A422?
Do you mean changing the red line of the
Yes,
current
yeah,
access? The red line at the moment wouldn't allow that, so that wouldn't be something we could discuss, because that's not the proposal in front of us, and it's, as highways haven't objected and there's no landscape concerns, we as officers haven't discussed it with the applicant either.
One of the issues also is obviously with the amount of traffic that's actually going to be generated is with regards to any damage to the roads. Will that actually be made good?
Thank you, councillor. Well, we have discussed with the applicant an additional condition we could include. We actually included this at the Kilworth solar farm, which members approved. I've got some suggested wording, which would be, prior to commencement of works, the applicant shall be required to agree the scope and enter into a section 59 agreement with the LHA. The agreement will include a pre-construction highway condition survey. Following completion of the works, a post-construction highway condition survey shall be undertaken with any highway defects attributed to the works rectified at the applicant's expense. So the idea being, they're obviously going to be using our road network for the construction vehicles. So they will go out to assess what the road network and their routing is like at the moment. And if there's any damage to the work, to the road network, once they've completed works, they have to make good all of those issues that they may have created.
Yeah. And also, perhaps when you look at this particular solar farm location, when it actually comes to 30, 40 years' time, once the land has been cleared of the solar panels, will it actually be classified as a brownfield site or be a greenfield site?
Currently, it will be a greenfield site. So that will return to agriculture. Obviously, I can't specifically say what the government's going to be saying in 40 years' time, but as it stands, that returns to agricultural use.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, officer.
Any more questions? Yes, councillor Humphreys, please.
Thank you. Just general comments. As regards the pre-construction survey condition, I think that's very welcome. In my ward, the solar farm at Yelvertoft caused considerable damage to local roads, and there was that in place to identify how much damage has been done. But just going back to the track, I think it's welcome that it will remain looking an agricultural track. The tarmacked access roads one sees around here and solar farms have a very jarring effect in a rural landscape. So I think it's something we should keep an eye out for future solar farm applications. If construction can be done with a hardcore rather than tarmacked, I think that is very desirable. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Cecile.
Yes, I'm back to my little agricultural track. You say that it would have some passing bay?
Yes, that's correct, councillor. About every
So-
250 metres.
So I think when the construction is finished, they will not need passing bay. So at least could we condition that the track at the main stays the same, but the passing bay are removed? Because frankly, it doesn't make sense to have, if we want a track that look agricultural, a passing bay, if you have a big harvest and so on, it goes over whatever. It doesn't need a passing bay. So could we have that condition, or that is a bit too much to ask, that it become a single track after the construction? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just going to check the conditions we proposed and see if anything covers that off. Sorry about that, councillor. We're just discussing. As it is hardcore, obviously it should be relatively easy just to bulldoze it off and remove it. So we will look to word a condition to follow your suggestion if that's what the members would like.
Councillor Manners.
Are any of the local villages gaining anything financially from this development?
Not that I'm aware of, but it's not something we could consider anyway in the planning balance. It's one of those items where I think it's up to the solar provider to deal with such an issue. I think you may remember from the South Kilworth Welford solar farm, it was one of those where South Kilworth isn't in our patch and Welford is. So Welford received the benefit. I think accepting there is an access here, I'm unaware of any discussion with the solar farm for financial benefit, but it may be that this was taking part on the Buckinghamshire side. But again, it's not something that we can weigh in the planning balance in favour or against an application.
Yeah, but when you're in discussions with the solar operator, you can ask those questions because they're not going to offer it voluntarily.
But I can't ask for a contribution for something that's not lawful as part of an application.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that that's correct information. There used to be community payments available with, I think, with the wind turbine applications many years ago now, but that doesn't follow. That wasn't a legal requirement, and it wasn't a planning requirement, and it's not brought through onto the solar farm applications either. So it isn't something we would have any basis on which to require or indeed suggest to applicants, unfortunately.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. Knowing Wicken Parish, they already have a solar farm, and could I just recommend that the applicants do consider that sort of contribution towards the parish, because the existing solar farm actually do contribute to the parish. And I will end there.
Cecile, again.
Well, I would like to propose that we go with officer advice with the addition of putting the track as a single tracks when it's finished and getting rid of and if people agree with that, if I have a seconder, I would like to go with a proposal. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to vote on it. I'm just finding me seconders and I was going to come to you, Councillor Russell. So Councillor James is second that. Right, Councillor Russell, question please, or whatever.
Thank you. I couldn't find anything that told me who is responsible for the maintenance of the solar panels should something go wrong. And if so, how accessible or how easy would it be for the repairs or maintenance to be carried out?
So obviously the solar panels sit on the Buckinghamshire side and fit under their condition regime. Sorry for, sounds like I'm sort of trying to slide off those questions. The accessibility again would come from, if I get the layout out. There's an internal road inside it on the Buckinghamshire side. And I suppose the solar farms now have got relatively good processes in place for getting involved for maintenance. From our experience of our solar farms within WNC, it's usually about once a month a single vehicle turns up and goes around with I suppose a giant squidgy and makes sure everything's still working and gives the solar panels a clean.
And if something went wrong with the cabling, which is on West Northants land, would that be at our expense?
It wouldn't be our expense. It would, I suppose, either National Grid would use their statutory powers to go in and deal with it, or I suppose the applicant would be quite incentivized to make sure that the power is still coming off their site.
Yes, Councillor Holland de la Mayor.
Sorry, just to clarify, we talked about a condition survey of the roads as well.
Yes, we did. I was going to include that one.
Yeah.
Summarising, you're absolutely right. Thank you. Right, we've had a proposal from Cecile, seconded by Councillor James, to accept the officer's recommendations with the inclusion of the pre and after survey of the road conditions to rectify if at all necessary. and the removal of part of the track. It's superfluous to use once the lorries have had access. Does that sum up where we're at? So those in favour of that suggestion, please show. That is unanimous, thank you. And as an aside, talking about solar panels, I went to Bristol 2 weeks ago, went past a solar farm and there was sheep actually grazing under the panels. Now, I've never ever seen that in my life, so it does work, they can do it. But anyway, it now being 3:25, I declare the meeting closed and thank you all for your attendance. Oh, sorry, Councillor Manners before. I close it.
Just before we had this application, I had a quick chat with the gentleman from Bloor Homes. And he told me that from next year, mid next year, any development that hasn't got the slab actually in the ground will have to put heat pumps in. The point that I'm making is that it would be really useful to have a briefing on from either building regulations or whatever, so that we understand the current regulations, what's actually going to be coming, and what we can expect from developers. Please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'll be talking to Steph later on, so I'll try and get something organised for us.